Ladies and gentlemen, as we begin our services, if we can please kindly turn off all cell phones or electronic devices, or please place them on silent. Thank you.
Mizmor LeDavid, Adonai Rohi Lo Echsar, Binoter Sheyar B'Tzeini, Al Mei Menuchot Yanaleni, Nafshi Yeshover, Yanecheni V'magle Tzedek, Leman Shemo. Gam ki elech begetz al mavet, lo hirara ki ata imadi. Shivtecha umishantecha, Hema Yenachamuni, Taroch lefanai shulchan, Neged zorerai, Dishanta vashemen roshi, Kosi revaya, Achto v'chesed yirdefuni, Ko yemechaya, V'shavti bevet Adonai, Leorech yamim. The 23rd Psalm. God is my shepherd, I shall not want. God makes me lie down in green pastures, leads me beside still waters, and restores my soul. You lead me in right paths for the sake of your name. Even when I walk in the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You have set a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You have anointed my head with oil, my cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of God forever.
Psalm 121. Shir lamalot, esainai helari me'an yavo Ezri. Ezri me'im Adonai, oseh shamayim va'aretz. Al yiten lamut raglecha, ayanuhum shomrecha. Hine lo yanhum v'lo yishan, Shomer Yisrael. Adonai Shomrecha, Adonai tzilchad al yad yaminhecha. Yom ham hashemesh lo yichacha. Ve'areach b'layla. Adonai yishmorcha mikol ra. Yishmor et nafshecha. Adonai yishmor tzedcha. Uvohecha me'ata v'ad olam. A song for ascents. I turn my eyes to the mountains, from where will my help come? My help comes from Adonai, maker of heaven and earth. Adonai will not let your foot give way, your guardian will not slumber. The guardian of Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps. Adonai is your protection, a guardian at your right hand. By day the sun will not strike you, nor the moon by night. Adonai will guard you from all harm and guard your life. Adonai guards your going and coming, now and forever. My name is Rabbi Sam Hollander, joined by Rabbi David Englander and Chazan Elisa Pomerantz-Burrow and Rabbi Aaron Krupnik. On behalf of all the Congregation Bethel community, we are here with you in remembering the life of Joel. And while today is a difficult day, we first began with the recitation of Psalms, thus linking Joel's life with that of Jewish tradition, linking him with our thousands of years, especially when we don't always know the words to say, we can turn to our tradition. But today, while it is difficult, it is also a moment to celebrate the life that we shared. And so to do so, we'll turn to those that knew him best, first beginning with Jay, his son, to share some of those memories.
Thank you all for being here today to honor my dad's life. It's never easy to find the right words in moments like these. I want to share a few memories of a man whose presence in my life shaped who I am and who will always be deeply missed. My father met my mom back in the late 60s. From the start, he embraced our family wholeheartedly. My mom was a single mother to my sister, Ann and I, or me, because our biological father died when we were very little. My dad also experienced deep loss, as his wife had also died. My dad and his son, Stephen, my mom, Ann, and I built a new life in Cherry Hill together that was filled with love, laughter, and resilience. I still remember the first time I met him. I was just a little kid, like 6 or 7 years old, but I was already looking out for Mom. On their very first date, I asked him without hesitation, "Are you Jewish?" Now, I don't know how many kids that were my age grill their mother's dates like that, but I was just making sure he was the right guy for her. Even then, I somehow knew that that person who stepped in our lives needed to be someone special, and he was. Dad didn't just marry my mom, he chose all of us. He never treated Ann or me anything less than his own. He led with quiet strength and generous heart, teaching us the value of family, hard work, and integrity. He had a way of making people feel welcome, of making them laugh, and of making sure everyone around them felt like they belonged. He taught us the value of hard work and the importance of kindness. When he met others, he had a very welcome, he had a way of making everyone feel welcome. One of my favorite things to do with my dad growing up was playing golf. Those times on the course were more than just about golf. It was a space where we laughed, told stories, and received lots of lessons. Whether it was about the game or about life, he always had something to say. Those times were about being there for me, with me, showing me that it meant to enjoy life, how to laugh at the mistakes. like the many bad shots that didn't go as planned. He would always say to me, "You're definitely getting your money's worth." For all you avid golfers. My parents, when we were little, were young, owned a liquor store and cheese shop. I remember the times where my brother and I, when we were little, went there to stock shelves, unload delivery trucks, and break up the cardboard by hand. We felt so important to be helping my dad. But the best part of going there were all of the great perks. Early breakfast at the Burlington Diner, the endless supply of yoo-hoos, snacks, sodas, Slim Jims, and lots of junk. Later on, we discovered what a pony bottle was, preferably Miller and Tennessee Cream Ale. Luckily, he didn't find out about that part until we were a little older. Those times were just about the fun. Well, excuse me. Those times weren't just about the fun. They were about giving back to my dad, the way he had always given us. As we say goodbye today, I know what my father's legacy. I know that my father's legacy is not just in the memories we hold, but in the love and lives he's touched. His love lives on in each of us, in the lessons he taught, in the kindness he showed, and in the strength he distilled in us. Dad, thank you for everything, for choosing us, for loving us, and for being the kind of father that we were lucky to have. We carry you with always. We carry you with us always. Thanks.
Thank you, Jay, for those touching words. To continue in sharing with memories, we'll continue with Anne.
It all began much like the Brady Bunch. Two widowers, each with their own children, found love and brought two families together, the Millers and the Asnens. Jay was 8, Stephen and I were 5 and 6 when our parents married. Dad decided not to only marry Mom, but to open his heart to 2 more children. He shaped our lives, loved us unconditionally. I think I can speak for my brothers, Jay and Stephen, when I say we don't remember a time when we ever felt that we weren't all his children equally, and his love for us never wavered. From the very start, he treated Jay and me like we were his own, and that we were his own. Adoption was a bit further down the road. Mom and Dad told us they waited until we were old enough to truly understand what it meant, so that it could be our decision too. Dad gave Jay and I the choice whether we wanted to change our last name. Jay, in his thoughtful way, chose to keep Miller, honoring our birth father's legacy. And although I would have been proud to have Asnen as my last name, there was no chance I wanted to fall in the beginning of the alphabet and have to go first all the time. The last name Miller guaranteed me I would never be first. Yep, that's how this kid thought, and it was totally fine with him. He knew he was my dad. I have a couple of quick stories that tell you exactly who he was. There was a family road trip to the Catskills. As all cool kids in the mid-'70s, I sported an oversized comb in my back pocket. Somewhere along the ride, I had to go to the bathroom, and the rest stops were far and few between. So pulling over on the side of the road became the only plan. With tissues in hand, Mom and I walked off into the woods, and well, down went the jeans. A few minutes later, we were back in the car and headed on to our vacation. Well, that was the plan. After a couple of minutes, I realized that the comb was nowhere to be found, and I started to cry. I have to be honest, I don't remember if Dad was happy about this or not, but he turned the car around because that comb had been a gift from my grandmother, and I couldn't be without it. We retraced our steps back into the woods, miles down the road, and sure enough, we found that comb. We recount that story often, including last week when Dad and I were having some memories together. He did whatever it took for us to be happy. Then there was the family trip to Busch Gardens in Virginia, where Dad promised us the best ice cream ever at a place called Tasty Freeze. Jay wisely decided to stay at the hotel that night. Stephen and I in the back seat had no idea what was ahead. For hours we drove and drove and drove. Dad was certain he knew exactly where it was. It's important to remember that there weren't cell phones or Waze or Google Maps back then, and my dad was that guy who would never ask for directions. We never had ice cream that night, and Jay wasn't sure we were ever coming back to the hotel. From then on, every time Dad talked about going for a drive, we jokingly asked, not to Tasty Freeze, right? Decades later, when my daughter was a student at Salisbury University on the eastern shore of Maryland, I passed a Tasty Freeze, a couple of miles from our campus. I took a picture and I sent it to my dad. I found it! Laughing over the memory together we shared so many years before. His life wasn't about grand gestures, but about the quiet consistency of showing up for his family, day in and day out. Whether it was staying up late to help with school projects, making sure we had everything we needed for our adventures, or just being there to listen. Dad always made sure we knew we were loved. His actions spoke volumes, and we grew up with the comfort of knowing that no matter what life threw our way, we would never face it alone. One of the greatest lessons he taught us was the power of kindness and empathy. He had an incredible ability to connect with people, to offer his support without hesitation. Dad always made people feel like they mattered. Dad, you are our guide, our protector, our constant, and our greatest supporter. We will miss you every day, but we are so grateful for the time we had with you. Your legacy lives on in my brothers and I, and your 4 incredible grandchildren. Rest in peace, Dad. We love you. I want to take one more moment to thank Seth, my dad's caregiver, from the bottom of our entire family's heart for the exceptional care and kindness you provided to my father during such a difficult time. Your presence brought comfort, dignity, and peace and we will always be deeply grateful for the love and respect you showed him. Your dedication, compassion, and patience made such a difference in his life. We know he felt safe and cared for in your hands. I also want you to know how much your support meant to the rest of the family. We will forever be thankful for all the ways you made his final days peaceful. Your kindness will never be forgotten. Thank you. I made it almost.
That's all right. As you settle back in, the grandchildren who are coming forward will be able to do so now.
Tough act to follow. Okay.
Oh, you're going?
I'll go first. That's fine. Anyone who knew my grandfather knew he was the kind of person who loved to share his wisdom, whether it was a profound life lesson or just an interesting fact that he thought was relevant at the moment. When I decided to go to nursing school and pursue a career in healthcare, he was always ready with some ancient fun fact about medicine. He even had a few special nicknames for me, like the classic nursey nurse, or he'd even throw in well-known names such as Florence Nightingale or Clara Barton. In regards to these nicknames, quoting directly from our text messages, he always remembers the prominent nurses who made my profession memorable. Once I officially started working in the hospital, he always wanted to know what new or fancy surgery I was assisting with that day. While the rest of my family was just satisfied knowing that I had done something interesting, he wanted every last detail, all of the nitty-gritty. He was one of my biggest supporters, cheering me on through nursing school and into my career, always making sure he knew how proud he was of me, or always making sure I knew how proud he was of me. Even in the past few weeks, when I took some time off to be with him, in his eyes, I was never really off, because of course he had me doing all sorts of nursing tasks, like fluffing his pillow or giving him a back rub. Speaking of back rubs, one of my best childhood memories is of the sleepovers at my grandparents' house. My sister and I would each claim a spot on their laps in their reclining chairs, watching a movie or a TV show while getting the world's best back scratches. Grandpa in particular had a way of making a simple back scratch into something so much better. And oh, how the tables have turned as it became one of his most common requests for us to give him one instead. I can only hope that I was able to return even a fraction of the comfort and relaxation he gave us as kids. My grandfather was so incredibly wise and caring. He will always be so loved and so missed, and I hope to continue making him proud every day, just as he always made me and my sister feel so proud to be his granddaughters.
If it hasn't been made clear already, my grandfather was a giver. From our baby days when he'd hold me and he'd give me my bottle and then watch me throw it across the room, to when I started driving and he'd let me borrow his car keys with an hour's notice, and through our entire lives when he wouldn't let us leave his house until he handed me a wrinkled $20 from his pocket. He also gave me his love for food. Gramps and I used to love having lunch dates at Costco on Sundays when it was full of samples. That's the best time to go. When we ate at one of their favorite restaurants, Amici, many times, I quickly fell in love with a dessert new to me, tiramisu. I loved it so much that Grandpa took the time to go back to the store, buy all the ingredients, and teach me how to make it. I remember getting excited to go grab a piece from the freezer every time we went to visit. He kept it right next to the Kahlua, which, surprise, is now another one of my favorite things. The most special thing my grandpa ever gave me was his listening ear. In college, I began a career in environmental sustainability, studying and working to create positive change for a healthier and happier world for both the people in it and the ecosystems that support us. For some, it's difficult and unique to understand, but my grandfather was one of you that truly tried. I couldn't wait to send him pictures of what exciting thing I was up to this week because I knew I could expect his call within the hour or sometimes even within a few minutes, asking for me to tell him more. He'd send me multiple articles a week that made him think of me, even if they weren't directly related to what I do. It made me feel heard. I always got pictures of his paper straws whenever he went out to eat. It didn't matter if it was silly, because he made me feel special. We'd have great, intelligent conversations about the state of the world, and he'd ask me what I was going to do to save it. To him, I was his trash girl, which to literally anyone else probably sounds like an insult, but to me, it's something that will always be special. Thank you.
Thank you for those beautiful reflections, memories, words that come from the heart and to the heart, and they certainly did. I want to start a reflection based on what was really the restart of Joel and Muriel's life following significant loss. Everyone who knows something about the immediate background to your marriage is touched by its sheer power, which is the power of hope and faith over loss and despair. Loss of the spouse of your youth, as the Bible refers to it, is a blow that some simply do not ever move on from. That you both did to find each other, to build a beautiful life together, is a testament to your mutual understanding that life really is meant to be lived. And live you did through over 50 years of marriage, blending this family into one, standing by and with each other through all that your mutual journey had to offer. As I walked out of your building yesterday, where we will return to for Shiva as these days unfold, following a truly wonderful conversation about Joel's life with a family that was nearby enough to participate, it was a phrase from our sacred Torah that struck me. It's how God describes what would become an imperative for people to pair up, as it were, if that was in the cards for two individuals. A woman would become to a man his ezer kenegdo. It's a strange phrase. It means something like his helper opposite him. It has been interpreted many ways over the centuries, including not always charitably. For a spouse to be their beloved's ezer kenegdo perhaps means that in any way they can be of help to the one they find themselves often face to face with every single day. That is how they will try to be of help to them. And you heard that echoed in the beautiful reflections already offered. You were each other's ezer kenegdo. And the first way that you all described Joel was that he was there for whatever you needed, whenever that was needed. To help occasionally, to step up only when the chips are down, to assist only when it suits you, that was not Joel. He was all in for you all the time. And that is a beautiful part of a special legacy to remember and also, of course, to try to live up to. Joel was born in 1938 in West Philadelphia to parents Henry and Dorothy, who did all different kinds of jobs to make ends meet and modeled the lifetime of dedicated work that Joel also represented in his multiple successful professions and endeavors. His first paid position was when he was just 12 years old, and there was probably not a year between then and just a short time ago when work was not a significant part of his life. Marshall came along some years later, and how special it was to hear of your early days when Joel was tasked with the responsibility of not just walking you to your school, but making sure you got to your classroom. How you described that the two of you were joined at the hip for your whole lives, with many good memories of terrific meals, rounds of golf, and simply being together. Family would move to Northeast Philly, and it seemed like everyone was then close by. Sundays meant lunch with one set of grandparents and dinner with another. It's a meaningful way to grow up, and it represents and demonstrates the centrality of family in a way that most of our kids will not experience directly. Truth is, that's to all of our detriment. Yet they absorb that value, don't they? Just as your family has. And remain close, even if just dropping by is no longer the reality that may once have been. There were no babysitters apparently back then, so Joel looked out for Marshall. Your country club, as you said, opened for business the first day that anybody turned on the fire hydrant. Graduating from Abraham Lincoln High School led to enrollment at PCP&S, putting Joel's scientific knowledge and interest to good use. Amazingly, he and Muriel both worked for Einstein Southern at the same time, but in different departments. It was as if fate was somehow bringing them closer, though they are pretty sure that they never met while they worked there. He was even head of the Poison Information Center of Philadelphia for a time before he joined with his first father-in-law in the liquor business, as was mentioned. So after he was married to Brenda, of course, soon Stephen arrived, and sometime after her passing, you heard how a blind date led to this romance and this deeply dedicated relationship. Even if their first date was on mischief night, as the night before Halloween is known in some circles. June 14th, 1971, 3 weeks after I was born. They would stand under the chuppah in the chapel at Bethel, appropriately enough, on Chapel Avenue, the shul that Muriel has called home since its days in Camden. What a Bethel legacy you have created, in addition to the legacy of this wonderful family. Speaking on behalf of your Bethel family, we're really glad that he moved to you rather than the other way around. And you built your life with friends made and kept for many years through your connection and dedication to our Bethel. The liquor business being left behind, Joel transitioned into that rare breed, the truly compassionate and actually interested in you insurance salesman. No offense to insurance salespeople here or anywhere else, of course. He would go door to door. He became part of your family. He looked after you, and he did what was right by you, up to and including filing claims when you weren't sure how to fill out what must have been many forms and details. That he served firefighters in this capacity was also very moving to learn about. He no doubt recognized their service and sacrifice and wanted to make things just a little safer and more secure for them as they did every day for so many others. He is remembered for his gourmet-level cooking ability, and how great was it to hear you talk about the Bethel Cooking, Eating, and Schmoozing group, where the men did the cooking, rotating around various homes. It was that talent that was also utilized in that cheese shop open next to the liquor store, which was both a source of delicious food as well as a place to hang out as well. I know that many of the family worked there and have good memories of that period. Joel's home growing up may not have had the time or the deep interest in the ritual life of Judaism, but clearly seeds were planted of Yiddishkeit that ran very deep and took root. During COVID, Joel was on Bethel's Zoom Minyan every single day, and if you happened to call him during Minyan, he'd call you back later. And our last conversation, just this past Friday, which still feels so very hard to believe, he recounted some of his Bethel activities and commitments, including being an early advocate for the transition to egalitarianism, how he was a long-serving high holiday usher, enjoyed active involvement with our men's club, and ran what is truly an excellent-sounding winter retreat multiple times. But in that conversation and others, even more than Bethel, he spoke about his kids and his grandchildren, and his pride and love for his family and for your accomplishments. That is love that stays with you and propels you forward through sadness and loss. There is much to be sad about, as Joel's unique, supportive presence for whatever you most needed has left us. And there's also so much to be grateful for over the course of a life that was well and meaningfully lived. Those who had this Gramps in your life for your whole lives will carry incredible memories of how he was no generic grandfather who stayed distant or was at all disinterested in your very contemporary lives. He was the most interested, found ways to connect to exactly who you are and what you were up to at any given stage of your lives, and that is a very special blessing indeed. Just this week, we began to read the book of Leviticus, which, as Joel and many of you know, is centered on the sacrifices that were offered in the Holy Temple, a practice that ended with its final destruction in the year 70 CE, and so it's been a while since sacrifices were offered in Judaism. And while these ancient practices could feel foreign and distant, there's still connections to be made, and there are many lessons to be learned, even on a day such as this. What comes to mind is an offering called the shlamim. You may recognize the word because it is based on the same word as shalom. The Torah is not clear exactly why someone would choose to bring a shlamim offering. It was an offering of peace, of wholeness, and many have expressed opinions on that along similar lines. When someone wanted to approach God out of thanks for a sense that they had achieved this inner sense of wholeness, this sense of well-being, of what we might call wholeheartedness, of completeness, this voluntary offering could be brought to a priest and it could be sacrificed on your behalf. If we can live our lives in a way that makes us worthy recipients of a blessing such as feeling like we really matter to others and know truly that others matter to us, that we made a positive difference during our time here, and we've gained the sense that we will be remembered for good. Those would all be reasons to bring such an offering. Though without any doubt, we would have preferred more years of good health and no pain. Joel's life is one that is worthy of being remembered for the kinds of blessings and positive impact that in days of old would have been affirmed by an offering of the feeling of completeness. Joel's earthly journey is complete, made so and blessed by you who loved and appreciated him so very much. May his endless deeds of compassion and helpfulness inspire many more in our own lives. We know that his memory will be for a blessing. We pray that you'll all find comfort and consolation in your time of loss. I offer mine, our clergy, and our Bethel's community's condolences to Muriel, and as your family and friends stand with you, marveling at your remarkable strength with full knowledge of the love and the appreciation that you had and will always have for your Joel. To Marshall, it was an honor to hear of your lifelong connection to your older brother and to your stories of the youth that you shared. To Jay and Wendy, Stephen, and Ann, and children who grieve the loss of a loving dad who will follow in his footsteps, each in your own way, over the course of what we pray will be long and healthy lives. To Nicole, Jordan, Jared, and Zachary, these terrific grandchildren who each enjoyed their own special connection to their gramps. You'll think of him often and continue to live out his special legacy through the lives that you are building. Tenishma Totsura Bitzrachayim, may the soul of our great friend Joel Asnen be bound up in the bond of eternal life. May he rest in peace, and let us say, Amen. Just as a reminder, as was previously announced, Shiva will be held to Muriel's home at the in the Weston Club. It's the third floor of the Adam Building. The address to utilize 339 Haley Drive, in a common area just on the third floor there. Today, with visitation welcome following interment, that will take place at Crescent Memorial Park following the service's conclusion here. There'll be a service this evening at 6 p.m. Tomorrow, visitation welcome from 1 p.m. to 4:30 p.m. Saturday, visitation welcome from 2 to 4 and 7 to 9:30 p.m. with a service at 8:35 p.m. or so. And then Shiva transitions to the home of Jay and Wendy in Robbinsville. And I believe information is available about the Shiva in Robbinsville as well. Certainly contact the family if more of that is needed, but there will be Shiva there on Sunday, April 6th through Tuesday, April 8th, during the day with services at 8 p.m. those evenings. At this time, I'll invite you for the Amale Memorial Prayer, in which we invoke Joel's Hebrew name and those of his parents, linking the generations to rise in body or in spirit. You can rise at this time.
El male rachamim, shochen bamromim, hametzeh menucha nechona tachat kanafei hashechina, b'malot kedoshim utehorim, כזוהר הרקיע מהזהירים, את נשמת יואל בן גרשון וציוויה בלה, שהלך לעולמו בגן עדן תמנוחתו. על בעל הרחמים, הסתירהו בסתר כנפיך לעולמים. וצרור בצרור החיים את נשמתו. אדוני הוא נחלתו, וינוח בשלום המשכבו, ונאמר אמן.
El Malay Rachamim, exalted, compassionate God, grant infinite rest in your sheltering presence among the holy and the pure. To the soul of Joel Asnen, Yoel ben Gershom Vitsivia Bela, who has gone to his eternal home. Merciful One, we ask that our loved one find perfect peace in your eternal embrace. May his soul be bound up in the bound of life. May he rest in peace. And let us say, Amen. You may be seated.